So we'll call the meeting to order for May 15. Nice to see you all. Who are we missing? We're missing, I know Julie, she's on the phone. Julie, is it Borneo you're in?
No, I'm in Lake Cali off the coast of Malaysia.
I hope the reception on this end proves good. This is a speakerphone, so I'm hoping it's better than our usual cell phone, iPhone, anyway. And I know Dave Deaver was going to call in, and I know Flip's out, and who else would we be missing? John Zagrodzki's not here at the moment, but maybe he comes. Oh, anyway, but here we are. Good to see you all. So, Grant, how you doing? Good. Sorry if I sound winded. I'm coming from a board meeting. It's like back-to-back, tough. Anyway. Let's see. One thing we need to improve upon, if on an ad hoc basis, is we have yet to do any minutes of meeting and recording and approval from our last couple of meetings, and we definitely need to improve on that. What I'd like to do is just go through the names on the list, I'm afraid excluding mine, and have that person take notes and submit a rough draft, which I'd be happy to look at and polish up. So that would place Sam, you in the taking notes and doing a quick write-up category. Is that all right?
Does that mean I have a 9-month pass coming up?
No, we're just...
David Deaver.
Hey Dave, it's Bill. Can you hear?
Yes, I can.
All right. Okay, we just started the meeting up a minute ago, and Julie is also on the line with you. Yeah, so we'll just rotate through the list if that's the most equitable way to do this. Just do your best to take notes in the meeting and do your best to do a write-up, and we'll polish it thereafter, but we're not complying so far, and we must. It's a FOIA requirement.
Well, we do in Parks and Rec, and we don't have a staff member, but the staff member just watches the TV 79 back and makes the minutes from that, so that may help whoever's doing them be able to more actively participate.
Yeah, if there's a lack of clarity in something, you can go back and take a look for that to do that. So everyone knows how to get to 79 and know that we're recorded there? Okay. I guess you saw from the mooring policy thing. Did everyone watch that? Take a look?
Everybody watched.
Riveting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Riveting. It was great performances. It was great. Actually, it's very efficient.
Yeah. Well, it was a good meeting. Yeah, and I think the credit goes to John for preparing well for it. He gave us a bunch of great material. So wonderful. Okay, so what I thought I'd lead off with two things, and then we get an update on the 5 or so activities we have underway. Oh, David Kahn's missing, that's right, okay. Anyways, I wanted to start off with the Harbor Depth Channel Survey, which has come a bit out of the blue. Did people have a chance to read the one-page letter, which I have copies of if people would like to reference it right now and don't have a copy?
Just didn't see it.
Anybody would like to? So this has come a little bit out of the blue in the sense that, I guess a couple things. We've been doing this every 3 years since 2012, and the idea was, Flip and I had, and the commission at the time was, hey, let's get a feel for how this thing's filling in so that we can be prepared when it's needing a dredge, because the dredging process, both from a permitting standpoint and a fundraising standpoint to get it done, it was a public-private partnership last time, is fairly onerous. And so we've dutifully gone about it every 3 years, with the exception of the last one, which we were a year and a half late on, the April 2023, and I don't know how time got away from us. Literally, I think it's a pandemic thing. We just got squishy in thinking.
Blame it on that.
So, thank you. But the drastic change in the results, I don't think, are just pandemic related. Just waiting an extra year and a half did not cause what we're seeing. If you look on this one pager, we had filled in February 2012 from the original dredging depth 4,300 cubic yards. So if you wanted to clean it up to where it had been at a 7-foot depth level everywhere, 4,300 cubic yards would come out. That basically stayed the same through our next couple of surveys. So the first 3 surveys, sort of static picture. Now we go 4.5 years down the road to April 2023, and we've doubled, more than doubled. And, you know, is why? I've had a chat with the consultant. You know, they said excess rainfall, perhaps. They really don't know. And, you know, likewise, they say, you know, maybe this rate continues. Maybe it gets scoured out in some big storms. You just don't know. So I'm very frustrated because we had instituted the channel surveys to get this finger on the pulse, and hopefully the pulse had some trend to it, and all of a sudden this trend is just nil, you know, 0 to 100. I've got
the dam they put over. I have a question. The dam they put over, and then they opened 2 times over the bridge on Riggs End.
Right.
They opened that up. Could that be?
If they've done it, I'm not aware of them doing it more. If they're doing it more, perhaps.
I don't know that they did it before because it wasn't until they fixed it. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. They
yes,
rebuilt that. I don't remember the time frame.
Even longer ago. I've always been aware of them opening it up, but I haven't heard of them opening it with more frequency.
Okay. No, I don't know. I think they do it twice a year.
Yeah, I thought.
But before that, I don't think they did it for a long time. I don't know what the time period was, but maybe that's a reason. Could be a reason.
Yeah, I've thought that's been through all of this.
Period?
Yeah, but I'm not sure. It's worth investigating.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
The only thing I can add to that is I went to Seagate Inlet, and during those 2 storms, the velocity was huge coming out of the culvert system into our, and it was amazing. We got scoured out where the dock is quite nicely, and then it all pushed out further toward Holly Pond. So the impact of, now that's a closed system, it's coming out of a fire hose type of a thing, but if it's the same idea and it was rushing down off the dam during those floods, it may have pushed it right into our zone where it finally hit enough water to slow it down and drops out. Just as theory, but we saw that happen in our small isolated area.
In Holly Pond, yeah. I mean, you know that just by looking at the flats that have been coming up, rather than...
We always know how deep, it's very shallow now, and we always know how deep it is, and now we've been able to see, wow, it's a lot deeper where our dock is, and then further out where we put some of the boats, it's like dropped out there when it hit more of the water column. So that's just our interpretation.
So we've got the large charts here. People want to take a little look at them. I don't know, it's a little hard. Maybe
I'll interject too. I can share with some people too. I went on this the soundings trip with the guy. I do have some pictures of what they use. The guy and his colleague couldn't have been any nicer. And it's a aluminum closed boat with a couple of ground scanning sonars. And I met him at the boat club. They were calibrating everything. So the sonars change depending on water temperature. So they put a calibrator in there first and sort of check it out, and they're like, okay, it's 50 degrees or it's 40 degrees, it's cloudy, it's murky, it's freshwater, it's saltwater. All those things sort of affect how the readings work. And so they do that, and then they go out and they just sort of like run back and forth a couple of times, and they look for, I believe he said 200% coverage in the whole area. So being as 50 feet wide as they cast, they sort of go back over the middle of it and sort of cover that. They go up and down 4 times or so, and they get a good reading, as you can see on these, from what it is.
It's a huge overlap, sort of curious.
Well, so it gives, the huge overlap is specifically for accuracy, right? Because the more overlap there is, the more soundings you get in that specific area. And it was kind of cool, when you go over a track, it's almost like running a highlighter. You know, there's like a wide beam or band that's shown, and then when you go over it again, it's like putting another band of color on, so you know exactly what you covered and you're getting over again. I have some pictures on my phone I can show you guys. But it was cool. A couple years there's ever an opportunity, it was just interesting to see.
Let me give you a second chart down here. We actually can talk a little bit via these are 2 side by side. We can talk via the numbers.
So, can I just go basic?
You were saying that.
This was,
Yeah.
I assume cooking at
Yeah,
low
so
water.
that's-
Just wait till they get set up and,
this is
What do these numbers represent?
yeah.
I mean, I see, yeah, but that's minus 7.5, minus 7.8, from 23?
From water line.
It's kind of
No,
interesting.
so there's a, here, let's just wait till everyone gets, you want to just outline the charts and, these are charts that go together.
Go together?
Yeah.
Go together.
So you see the left side would be the most northern part of our system. Our-
So that's the boat club,
Boat
up
club,
and
yeah.
around down, that's the whole,
And so,
and then up.
so what you're seeing on this is, it's a depth datum that they're working off of. So, off of a, I'm not sure what it is, a mean low water or, yeah, mean low water, what is the depth? And when they originally did this, it was 89 or 90, or 91, I'm forgetting. Sorry, a couple, early 90s. They dredged it to 7 degrees depth off mean low water, with another 1 foot of error allowed. So this could be 8 feet deep. And that was the license of material to remove and have as out spoils out in the sound. Or
7 feet on
7 feet
average.
plus one error, so 8 feet
Was
total.
what they'd like to have.
Is that plus or minus one, or is that, it would,
They were allowed an overage of that. So what you want to do, you want to be conservative when you calculate your spoils, because the Coast Guard or licensing authority doesn't want to allow you to do 8 feet when they only license for 7. So they get licensed for 8, but they only were trying to get to 7, but they got that wiggle room.
So this is like 5 feet?
This is the whole,
this is the reference.
they water dry.
Low water.
And then over here, we got, they want to be dredging near
It was kind of cool.
It's down to 3 feet,
Yeah.
the hump there, 2 feet.
So what this overall shows you, if it all was at the 7 feet that it was dredged to, the control depth, let's call that control depth, this whole chart would be white.
Got it.
But to the, sorry, I got it exactly wrong. No, what, I got it,
You do have
I do, right, yeah, it would be white, sorry. So the extent that there is shading areas, you've less than 7. That's been the fill-in.
This is less than 7?
So there's a lot of fill-in.
This is a fishing boat over here by the beach.
Yep, yes. See, the interesting thing to me, the interesting thing.
I was there for about an hour, and we were only able to do sort of, let's say, inside of the gazebo. This is because it was rough, this is heave and pitch and roll, like that. But it,
I'm guessing that's either.
So this is where, this is the rip right here, stays open. It would be interesting to know what happens out here, but.
So I wonder if they went over.
So the red marks,
Kind of show it.
the red marks are the 50-foot channel, so that's what they
Sometimes
dredged.
there are some.
And then on either side of it, they dredged what they call a slope, off the toe,
So you're seeing.
at a 3-to-1 ratio. So it goes like that,
and it's
exactly.
corrected for, these numbers from the way I understood it are mean low tide.
This is just the.
So
deepest part.
even though we were
It's not
out
for
pretty
the
close to high
channel. It's not
tide,
necessarily
it's just showing.
It adjusted the whole thing down.
Right, that has nothing to do with where we set our buoys. That is, we're idiots and put our buoys here. Yeah, but this is what was dredged. This is what we asked them to dredge, and they did dredge.
Is this suggesting shoreline to shoreline?
No,
No.
no. This is just, that, as Grant said, they
So over here,
50 feet, and they did more.
Okay, got
It doesn't show the 4 times.
yeah, so we know the depth currently was 13 feet, right? But we know that the true depth was 4.2, and that the
All the
correction,
shallow spots.
it even shows that, is the correction of 8.2. So you were probably high.
There's a
We were pretty high tide,
in here.
but John asked,
Draw 60
what
I
happens?
can't remember.
How's it know, right? And I can't say with certainty, but I would assume that software knows where you are in the tide cycle. So as time goes on,
Yeah.
it deducts that, because it knows where the tide cycle is.
You probably don't want to do it low tide, because then
Well,
there's
this is
not enough.
pretty powerful.
So I was going to point
Very
some, I
volatile.
was going to point some sections out to you all here.
Yes, please.
So, again, if it was all white, we wouldn't even have this conversation, I just would tuck this away, right? But we've got gray areas. If you look on the top, they give, there's sections, 0 plus 00, 1 plus 00. If you go to the section which is labeled 18 plus 00 to 22 plus 00, between those 2 points, is where things have really tightened up in terms of gotten shallower, I guess that's the better term for it. And if you look at the inner 21 plus 00 plus to 19 plus 00 in that little quadrant, yeah, that's the right word, things have really gotten tight. And that is the sandbar that a lot of us have known as you just go by your own yacht club on your left. There's a sandbar. So I've seen blue flame, a big swan, stuck there for a long time. I've hit there and worked through sludge at 5 feet.
Blue Flame's been stuck here, it's been stuck here.
She's doing 7, right? My boat was doing 5, and I got stuck in this little zone of 19 to 21. And if you look, we're hitting, below 5. And so you get a foot or two of wave in there, and that's a cruddy bottom for anyone who's got a 4 or 5 foot keel.
Or it doesn't go into low tide.
Right.
That's a fraction of an hour.
Then the next zone, you see this tight restriction? It looks like there's a Venturi effect there, which is exactly what it is. Talking to the consultant, that's the tightness of the channel coming in, a lot of water being squeezed, and it's a Venturi, and it's scouring out in the middle and filling in on the side. That's tight.
Yeah, this passage here.
Yeah, it's a tight little zone. That's another bothersome zone. And the final bothersome zone, and Lori's been aware of this from the start because you had the consultant in for the, working off of our Paratree boat launch trip, is really the whole trip from the launch out to the getting off the boat club docks, in the middle of the docks. So, I mean, it's all gray for a person who has to launch their boat. Now, people who are launching their boat generally don't have the 5 and 7 foot keels. But the water's getting to be, what is it, like 2 feet in there on the, off the E-dock?
So it becomes effectively a high tide launch
Only.
ramp.
It is.
Yeah.
Right.
It is.
Yeah, and that wasn't the case, that was deeper. It wasn't what was dredged, the 7 foot channel was just this red marker. So that's always been a different zone. I'm not sure what the depths were originally there, and the prior survey work that we had done in 1991 did not go that northward. And Flip and I said to him, go northward, we want to keep track of that. And I didn't bring the prior year's charts up to see where that's going. But so we've got these 3, fairly problematic areas. And if you read the letter I sent in the post materials, the dredging permit application process is a 2-year process. Costs $16,000, $17,000 to do. It sets you up for permit that goes for 5 years, so you can choose to use it. I mean, not to jump to conclusions, this is all for us to discuss, but I see it hard for us not to say, let's initiate a dredging permit application so that we're prepared. If this jump is repeated next year, we're in trouble.
Do you think you have the scanning done next year? Or you mean in 3 years? Because of the findings we have in front of us, are you saying don't keep the 3-year schedule, jump to next year?
Well, with the dredging application process, it's outside of that. It's saying let's get an Army Corps of Engineer permit to be able to dredge this harbor to 7 foot controlled depth everywhere. Now that's a big project. There's a lot of costs. We have to bid that out. But it takes 2 years just to get to the point of being able to do that. And if we don't start that now, we could be in serious trouble if this same rate of fill keeps occurring.
What did it cost to do the survey? If you have to do that?
$4,500 split between your own yacht club, Darien Boat Club, and the town.
So 2 years from now, if you finally get the permit ready, do they want to do it again?
You could do it again, and maybe a big storm has all scoured it out.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but do they require it, I guess? Does the Corps of Engineers require it to be done?
Good question. Good question. Yeah.
You would think that you would do it again just before to get a better idea. Because I seem to recall, my father was involved in the last dredging process, I think, and I seem to recall that they also like cherry picked a couple of spots. That they did some maintenance dredging, and there was a couple spots that, or maybe it was dock dredging. One was shallower in an area than the other, and they did a little more there than in other spots. And a survey like this gives a better picture of what needs more attention and what may have a hole.
Is the 16K for the permitting process plus the dredging fee plus the disposal fee?
Oh, God, no.
What does the 16K include then?
It's just to get you to the starting line and being able to call contractors and say, give us a proposal to dredge.
That's
We're
what I
licensed to
thought,
do it.
So 16 plus plus.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
Those are big pluses.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Lord, do you want to tell them a little bit of the experience
I
at
think
the...
the number we had for the dredging that would be related to doing the boat and then a boat ramp and then going just kind of up and around that curve, I think the disposal and everything was well over $600,000.
600,000.
Yeah.
Wasn't
I
it-
know it
how
was
was that-
more than that.
How was that funded historically?
Well, so that's a really interesting question. So my predecessor, Link Jewett and Sandy McDonald, who were vice chairman and chairman of the committee, of the Coastal Commission, did a really neat job of a public-private partnership for the dredging. So they basically said, who needs a deep channel with sailboats out there, right? But everyone in the harbor needs the harbor improved. So they split it between the Norton Yacht Club and they split it between owners of big boats. I think individuals were actually contacted. And then I believe the yacht clubs kicked in some, and then the town was the rest. So it was really a public-private partnership. And there are a lot of equity questions. Like when you look at 4.7 feet of depth, does that alarm the guy off the center console? Probably not. Or maybe it does, but it alarms me of a sailboat. I just sold mine, but a couple years ago. But it alarms anybody who's out and out of harbor with 4 or 5 feet draft, if not more. I don't know what is the right answer. I think that's what we need to discuss. What's the controlling depth which gets us alarmed? I don't necessarily think we're at that decision point. Getting a dredging application started gives us the option to be able to correct something which may get worse next year. We all could agree if it's 2 or 3 feet going to the Darien Boat Club, that just doesn't work. Hello, you there?
Hi, is this William?
Yes, hi. How can I help you?
Hi, this is Ariel with Sencovia, and I was reaching out to see if you had solar panels on your home.
I do, thank you. Goodbye. Sorry about that.
Thank you for sharing them.
Julie, Dave, are you still on?
Solar panels one.
Should still be good. Julie, David? I'm sorry, I gotta redo this. Just hold on a second.
Not very often, I actually want to share that with the group.
So, well, I do this if you
Okay,
want
well,
to
I was
discuss
gonna say,
the depth
one thing for
issue.
the group to think about is the town budget, which was just approved, which is for the fiscal year beginning July 1st. We did get approval for the money that we need to create the bid package for the Pear Tree Point project. So, and that would take, 60 to 90 days to get it ready once we commission it, and then that would allow us to go out to bid and find out how much the entire project is going to cost.
Okay.
Once we know
Welcome, and
that,
thank you for choosing
then the town will have to
freeconferencecall.com.
decide,
You're helping people around the
when
world
do we want to go
communicate
ahead?
for
And
free.
I honestly don't
Please
have a
enter
view
your
on that,
access
whether they'll say
code
that's
followed
just-
by the pound or hash
Get
sign.
after it now, our approval, which we got last November, December, is good for 5 years.
Please enter your access
So whether
code
you wanna
followed
think
by the
about
pound or hash sign.
Some harmonizing.
Getting this going and some harmonizing, because, if you're gonna do some of the, we would have to do at least some dredging to do the boat ramp and up and around if you wanna get the efficiencies of doing it all at the same time.
Wasn't that cost really high to dredge because of the soil content?
Correct.
It
There's
was,
some contaminants.
There's some
One
contaminants,
section.
yeah, so that definitely increased the cost.
And I think.
Because it can't be taken to the offshore dumping site, Long Island Sound, they just take it and go down and drift to the bottom of the sound, it has to be trucked to New Jersey or somewhere.
Wrote Yakla did a companion project at the same time, again, this feather them in for efficiencies and cost savings. But I think that was when we dredged the docks,
Which was only a couple years ago, right? 5 years ago?
and within 5,
Maybe.
so is his data, last data set was,
Yeah, 5 years ago. But I think we did some maintenance dredging in the Finnish boats.
yes, because we had the permit was the,
Please announce yourself.
elephant in the room.
Yeah, hi Dave, sorry, you're back on.
I mean, it just seems crazy that it takes 2 years to get a permit, but That's what it took us.
Yeah.
For the Bear Tree project, it was
And that's
solid.
all, the 2 years is because of environmental work they're doing to
She said it was Army Corps of Engineers, just lack of resources,
Yeah.
don't have people, just
You're
takes
just waiting
a long
a while.
time.
Just waiting a long time. Yeah, there were a lot of different steps, and they were involved, Connecticut Deep was involved, whatever, and that was during the pandemic too, so everything slowed down, but it was a solid 2 years with that approval.
So the milestones, if I just play back what I think I heard, it would cost us around $16K to have a permit process managed by this professional firm. That would be good for a period of up to 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
And the 2-year cycle is the U.S. Corps of Engineers.
Right.
So for us to advance, we would need to get funding for the permitting process,
Yeah.
which will take 2 years to complete with the Coast Guard Corps of Engineer approval, and then 5-year duration.
Right, and then you gotta get bids for the dredging itself.
Right, right.
You don't
Hi
want-
Julie, you back on?
Yeah.
I'm back on.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Have these results been shared
Um,
with the boat
no
club,
problem. I
the
was
yacht
just
club?
Asking,
Selectmen?
what does the initiating the process entail?
With the permitting,
Yes.
literally just signing a contract with the Coastline Consulting, that's the person we chose. And then I'm not sure on payment if they, graduated over 2 years or they want a bunch up front. I'm not sure of that, but $17,000 later, they complete their process in 2 years.
Okay.
Sorry, Laura, you were.
I just said, have this has been shared with, the interested parties, the yacht club, the boat club, selectmen?
Not yet at
Not yet.
all. John's been CC'd on this. I also sent on the application coastline proposal, but I haven't talked to John more about this, nor to Monica. But I think, and we all can have more process on this. I think we should make a recommendation to them that we, approve, or that we're gonna look more into this. I think it's a strong case for going forward with the application, just because I think you need the option to do that, because if the fill rate does the same trick it just did on us, it's gonna be, and it seems to do it in some concentrated spots, I would think you're gonna have a pretty unhappy boating
Well, in
community.
the very best case, it would actually be dredging in 2025, right?
If you got bids right away,
Yeah. If you streamlined it.
in the very best case.
The
In looking
very
at
best
the,
case.
in looking at the,
More likely.
A limited window you could dredge. This is like October through January.
Through April.
When you can actually do it. And that's because you need to do it off-season.
Yeah.
So you could be another year through another season if you don't get it.
Is the off-season boating season or shellfish?
Shellfish, I believe.
No, boats out of the way.
No, the shellfish says you gotta stop by April.
Oh, really?
Dredging, yeah.
Oh, no kidding?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. That's the restriction.
In theory, there would be no boats in the channel, so it would have to be something other than the boat's presence or not presence.
So the optimum is 7 feet, what if you go 9 feet, or, does
Hey,
that cost too much, does
She
it get
couldn't,
deeper?
I asked that because I was
Where
curious,
is
like, does everyone do 7 feet? And she just said, I see 7 feet a lot of times, but I don't know who and why and where. She did say it's very harbor specific,
Ah,
different harbors, different fill rates, so I don't have much more characterization than that. Ours, clearly, this was dredged, it's 1991 or so, I'm within a year or two. Ours has lasted a long time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in looking at this, it hasn't doubled, the period in between surveys has just been longer, right? I
Right.
mean, it's,
Year and a half longer. It was every 3 years, and then we went 4.5 years for this last.
October of 18 to April of 23,
4.5 years.
4.5 years.
Yeah, and it used to be 3
Okay.
years.
But look, it didn't increase much from 2012 to 2018.
Yeah.
It's almost the same number. And then suddenly from 2018 to 2023, it doubled in terms of the amount of material.
Well, it doubled plus a year and a half, right? So it's not double, it's 30% more, but it's not double. Just,
It
It's
absolutely
like-
I'm not
doubled.
saying it's
Doubled.
good, I'm just saying it's not
Well, so what do you all feel
The
about
reason,
It
it's
more than
not,
doubled.
it's not specifically apples to apples.
Is
No,
that
it's
all
not apples to
additive?
apples.
It's like there was 4,000 and then
No,
4,000 more?
no, it's not incremental, no, it's sort of like if you wanted to get back to controlled depth, that's the number you need to take out.
It was so stable there for a while.
I know.
I'm sorry,
So-
I would understand, yeah.
I just can't believe it's that stable for those years.
So the big concern is really for sailboats. I mean, that's the big concern.
Or also though, yes,
That we don't have, I don't know how many large boats you have that have, 4.5 foot. How many other boats do? I mean, I
Well,
don't think there are that many boats in the harbor that have. Are there?
there's the sailboat, large sailboat thing, and
Right.
that, there's an equity issue here, and who funds it? It's
No, I
a real
understand
question. But then also off the northern docks of, I think, the boat club, it's kind of darn shallow, and I hear people remark on that who've got just outboard engines, right, lowering down a couple feet.
Yeah, no doubt about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's, I don't know what the right depth there is, the one where everyone cries, hey, this doesn't work anymore. There's always the argument, hey, just wait till it's mid-tide, but I think we want our harbor to be more robust than that. And I think, so it's a question, so what, you don't want to wait for it to get to be 1 foot, right? So if you're getting down to 2 feet, 2.5
But
feet.
you're
you
not,
sort of-
but we're not talking about anything around the boat club, really, right? Because all we're talking about is this red area.
You're talking about the launching facility, so
Well, once,
Right, but I'm saying there's nothing, no, you're not talking about the launching facility.
well, we've had them do the survey.
That's a different thing altogether.
Well, no, we've had them do the survey up to the launch facility because we felt we should expand
isn't
that
that
view
depicted
beyond the
there on the
channel.
chart?
Well, I know what
You
he's saying.
just
So it's the
said to
9,000,
us, you
including
just said to
everything,
us,
right?
from 23 plus to 0.
Yeah.
You are not even
Just
at the
this.
Darien Boat Club. You aren't, so you're talking about this area.
Yeah, well, that was where we
And-
were dredged.
Right,
And then,
but,
This is the discussion here as well, right?
yeah, and we've thrown that in because that's a major
okay, so
facility in our harbor.
this is also inclusive of that
In my, yeah,
in this study?
yes,
They
Okay.
tried it,
Yeah.
right, so.
I understand they charted
the
it.
original channel
Everything was
stopped
here.
short, right? And originally, this commission just was dealing with that
Why is
channel.
this?
But Bill, I know what he's asking here, though. You know,
But do you see what I'm saying?
they didn't draw a line here to say this is part of the 9,000 just down the middle.
Well, we've talked about it.
So it makes you wonder
And then
if
for
it's really
other
a section over near there and how much of that.
I didn't ask that question.
Yeah,
That's
no,
a very good observation.
I wonder if it is just
We're gonna
this
find
area
out.
all the way through out here.
Is your point on the removal, the 9,000, whether it
Right.
includes that?
Yeah,
And I'm not
Did
sure,
it always?
that's a great question. I do not know.
because we were talking,
I
I
think
mean,
they would have
maybe that,
specified it over there.
Yeah.
maybe that's the increase is because we're inclusive of this.
No,
And was it
no,
inclusive
no,
of this before?
no, all our surveys have gone back to the launch.
Okay.
The
New news.
original, it's a really good question that didn't occur to me. The original channel dredging was just here.
Right.
But all the surveys we've had since we've been having the surveys have gone
So,
back.
so that would include the entire width of this, or how, that's,
Yeah, I think they would have marked it off if it was part of the 9,000.
that's why I'm.
And they didn't.
Well, that may be, so there's a great question there, but we still have the visible depth.
Oh, yeah, it's still an issue.
It's still an issue.
Look at
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, that's a great
That's why I
question.
started asking, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that didn't occur to me.
With Lori being here, as you contemplate the project to improve the boat launch, did that include any dredging? Or is that lit, and how far was that? Within a little bit?
This since I looked at it, but I believe,
Yeah.
John, do you remember, because it was up and around,
Sorry.
did the permit include up and around this curve? Because we ran into the problem with those floats.
Up and around, you're right, curve.
And it was
And then you ran into a
determined,
problem with this dock right
Right.
here. This one had a violation,
Right.
this one had no permit at all.
right, details,
Yeah.
right.
So,
So it definitely included up and
but
around
this
this
Right,
area.
area
so-
here.
So if that
has
included
not been
this,
dredged
and,
since 2001. The last time the Darien Boat Club dredged was 2001. Included in that project, whenever the Darien Boat Club dredged, it also dredged the area in front of the ramp.
In front.
There's like a
In-
pocket.
In
right?
front of it.
Yeah.
In front of it here. So we would dredge that out, and then usually the town would chip in about $10,000.
Because
But it
there's,
hasn't been done since 2001 because of the changes they made upriver the Good Friends of Goodwise River, the effort that they put through, greatly reduced the amount of sediment coming down the harbor. So that's why the Darien Boat Club hasn't needed to dredge in so long. In fact, we do our own like soundings from time to time, or the boat club does, and we don't feel there's a need to dredge in the actual mooring, the slip area. It's just out here where the dredging stopped. It's sloughed off and it's created this shallow area just north of these docks. It's really bad here.
Don't most of
So
the
you're
boat
coming-
club members, or many of them, use the town boat ramp to launch their boats? for the
Not
season?
really.
No?
I would say better than half the boats are stored at yards, and many of them arrive by water
By
in
water,
the
okay.
spring.
So, I was gonna move on to the next item, but here's what I wanted to suggest, and you guys tell me what you think. It's a serious issue, and $16,000 for us is a serious dollar amount. Like, to me, it seems that we should be spending the 16 to get a permit to have the option. But what I think though is there's, like, just as John's saying, there's some history at DBC with the dredging in 2001. There's the recent history with pesticides being discovered off the boat club and that increasing the cost. I think there's a few, and the history of like what's been dredged before and what's been included in the surveys. I think there's enough content here that would be great for 2 or 3 of us to delve into this a little more in depth, get all these answers to the corners of the page before we recommend to the selectmen what I think will be the outcome that we want to apply for our permit, to always have that option over the next 2 years. But it'd be nice for us to not have some of these questions lingering. I think that's a fairly short job for a couple people to do. And it would be great if someone who did it who's at DBC and someone did it who's at NYC. So I think those are like key constituents here. So anyone have an inkling to raise their hand right now, or do you want to think about it and I'll reach out to people a little later? We've got a lot of representatives from Road and Yacht Club, and we certainly have people from DBC. So give it some thought. I tell you what, why don't we need 2 people. I think if someone could reach out to me, 2 people could reach out to me and say they'd like to just do some homework on that. Talking to Lori, talking to John, other people at DBC, talking to Road and Yacht Club. I've got some old material on this. Let's try to get our arms around it a little more. Ultimately, really, this would be a big activity, trying to get funding for this, and you're hearing some of the dollar numbers from Lori.
Could you frame this for me a little bit? Lori said that the town's budget has just been put to bed. So when we talk about the potential of throwing our support behind $16,000 required to go into the permitting process, can the town approve that on a one-off basis, or are we already waiting for the next budget process?
You can go in for
One-offs?
an appropriation special request, yeah. I mean, ideally, had this body known it was coming, you would have put it into the budget process back in, I mean, I don't know that you guys put it in the
October.
budget at all, right?
Really, September, October, yeah.
Yeah, kind of January, the departments were all putting stuff in, but if something comes up and, this body feels strongly enough that it's necessary, then you would put a request together and go first to the selectmen
So,
and then the Board of Finance.
if I understand it, the 16,000 is how you get the survey going. And the result, a good result would be, not the survey, the permitting process would be in 2025 or maybe 2026. The collective we, the town, Darien, and interested parties would be at that point permitted to dredge over the succeeding 5 years. And we know from what Lori said near the beginning that this is a cost well north of $500,000, since that was how much it was just around the boat club, for us to do around the boat club, plus 2 or 3 bad places further out the channel. And at that point, we would be going with cup in hand to Norotan Yacht Club and the DVC, as well as the town, to see if there would be some sharing
What
costs.
equation works?
Yeah.
But isn't there, this is where it's really confusing. It's not clear to me. You said that it's a known for the project at the park right there, that there's a $600,000. So that's a known to get us there.
But it's not been approved.
And it's not by the
I
town?
understand that. No, I
Or
understand.
it's not been permitted?
No, it's not a known, that was an estimate, and the numbers are not fresh in your head,
Okay.
but the design firm that we've been working with puts the whole project, their sort of back of the envelope was $3 to $5 million, but this is the parking lot and everything else. But that's what the bid package will tell us, is we'll get a bid package,
Right.
and then we can put the whole project out to bid, and then we'll know the cost of the different elements.
With respect to being a known, does that mean that the selectmen have an idea that just the dredging of that area that we're talking about, which is, I guess on this, I'm not sure, is they know that it's approximately $600,000?
I'll have to go back and look at the numbers. I haven't looked at them since like last November.
Okay.
And I might be able to call that out, I might not.
So circling back to my initial question, when do we have to collectively say that we approve, we're supportive of the selectmen spending the $16,000 to initiate?
Well, I think there's a socialization of this that needs to take place at the yacht club and the Darien Boat Club and with the selectmen.
Of the
Of
$16,000?
the 16,000, not
Of the condition.
Of the condition.
Basic conditions.
the basic condition, yeah, get people
That's a start.
aware of this. There's, as we're pointing out, there's a lot of like equity issues, like why would Norotan Yacht Club people pay for Darien Boat Club or the launch ramp, shallowness? You know, Norotan Yacht Club people maybe have all sailboats and keels, why do they worry about something up there? So there's an apportionment of the costs and allocation. I think, to me, the only thing that's a non-brainer here is if the fill rate continues and we're just sitting on our hands and it takes 2 years to get a permit, you know, we're causing a lot of potential trouble in the harbor. And that's the only no-brainer to me is let's just jump on getting this permit so we get this option to do something should we need to. But you know, that needs to be socialized also, because I don't think the town should pick up the whole 16K. I think this should be spread. And, you know, everyone's got tight budgets, and before you can ask for that, they need to understand why and we're doing this and that.
And there's no funding that would come from the state, or? I mean,
Well,
it's a.
Yes,
it's
I
an
think that's part of the
application
equation too, and I'll be often the contrarian. I get the idea it's a no-brainer. If we don't take action, then it will become a limited use harbor over time. I mean, I think that is a reasonable, extrapolation.
Yeah.
But that said, to stitch together a request for funding for a permit and to feather in activities associated with a bid, or an activity to scope out the cost of dredging, and then to look for external state funding. So we saw New London and Norwalk. My memory serves, there were 2 geographies that received state funding. I don't know the conditions or it was perhaps deemed to be a commercial harbor.
Commercial,
Most likely. But, we do have legislators who are assigned to help us with funding issues. So I think that's the package that should be stitched together.
We can't ignore it. We have to explore that.
Yeah,
That's
all those pieces, but to ask for an appropriation for a permit without a larger end game in mind, other than it's probably 7 digits, doesn't feel right to me. It would seem to me that we understand better the timing of your project, say your project, the Park and Rec project, and feather those together. Maybe that's the work of these couple people. kind of stitch that together, layer them in.
I agree with that, you're only gonna go so far once you,
Yeah.
but unless we make some effort that way, we're not gonna have credibility with people we're talking to. And the potential, the ultimate funders of this town, Boat Club and Norton Yacht Club and private residents deserve more answers at this stage than we have. So I agree
Sure.
with what you're saying, yeah.
I think where I'm coming from is, to know that we need a permit will be part of the socialization and education, but the end game is not the permit. The end game is a dredging activity, and then the 1,000 questions. So how do we do it? How do we fund it? When would it occur? Is it still feasible in light of regulatory and environmental issues? Is that still possible? I think that's the other part of the equation that people would want to know too.
The cost, yeah, maybe we need to get some initial rough estimates. Yeah.
Maybe that's a probable way.
The basic thing is you used to be able to just dump it, there's a yellow buoy off our shores, like 2 miles out, you used to be able to just dump it out there. But now, there are limitations, I guess, on if it's got contamination of any extent, it has to go out into the ocean, and that's a greater cost.
I think if it's trucked.
Yeah.
Does the spill rate, what does it imply for the mooring field? Can we assume that the mooring fields are also filling in?
I don't know.
Or there's something specific because it's
I don't
kind of a
know.
river that something different is going in right in that 50 feet as opposed to the size?
We
I
didn't
thought that
dredge
was generally a caving in of the mooring, of the dredge channel is a caving in effect.
I'm not sure. Yeah. But we didn't dredge for the mooring channel originally. We said we're correcting, sorry, we didn't for the mooring field. We said we're correcting for a channel.
Oh, I
And
understand, but.
lots of other
wonder-
harbors live with, oh, you're on ground, it's low tide.
I don't know
Maybe.
if there is as much of a caving in effect. I remember a couple years ago, Tom Lockenfeld said that, like, Tom, you may know this, but like where the boat club was dredged, there were like, if you dive in there or you look, there you can still see teeth marks in the
Yeah,
mud.
he did make that comment.
So to the cave-in effect, because the mud is so sticky and so dense and so aggressive, I don't know if it's falling in like sand, at water level on the beach, right? But I don't know what's happening. But I do remember that comment from Tom Lockenfeld that it's pretty stiff when you take that shovel out.
Except for the channel. Is that the point? Is that your?
No, I'm saying I think
Inclusive.
I think maybe the fill-in in the channel could be silt coming downstream or other, but I don't know if it's caving in from the sides. Because the mud in the harbor is extremely dense and extremely heavy.
Well, I'd like to move on to the next agenda item. This has been good, but we're really going to need like 2 or 3 people to step up. I personally don't have the time, as important as this is. I literally just don't have the time. I'm glad to help and help guide something, but I need a couple guys who really want to. I don't think it's a huge task to get up to speed on all the issues, but some people need to. We need to as a group. So reach out to me, please, and if no one reaches out, I'm going to reach out and ask. But it's all up for us to volunteer for this type of stuff.
We can certainly provide the materials, there's lots of materials that have, from the permit and everything associated with that.
Yeah, you've done, on a portion of this, you've got your arms all over it.
It's a lot, it's the application, it's very technical.
Yeah, it is. I remember talking to, I forget his name, the consultant.
Dan Biggs.
He did great, right, he's quite good. Yeah. Well, good, that's a good discussion. And John, by the way, I've got a set of maps for you, charts here.
Oh, thank
For
you.
you to have. And actually, I'm skipping a beat here. I've got one for John, I've got one for DBC, I've got one for Norton Yacht Club, and I've got one for the town. So, who's our, Dave, are you our Darien Boat Club's representative?
Yes.
Maybe
I think I am.
since you're not here, maybe I give that to John in the meantime?
That would be a good move.
Okay, and then who's the Norton Yacht Club? I'm sorry, I'm just not recollecting.
Flip isn't here. I think it's Flip.
Is it Flip?
I think it's me.
Then you got one coming to you, so before you leave, yeah, okay. So if you both could make sure that gets to the Commodore. And I don't know the governance mechanisms at both clubs, but I think, initial discussion should be had with them along these lines. You can show them the minutes, you can refer perhaps to the half hour, 40 minutes we talked to here. They can double up, but I think they need to be kept apprised. So this is really feeding it back.
You know, I live practically next to Dave Beaver, I can just deliver them to him.
Okay, so don't leave without, thanks.
Yeah.
Super. So Dave, Sam's gonna deliver it to your house sometime. The charts from the depth survey. So this, so I'm sorry, the chairman's report's now like dominating the meeting. Maybe this will be a little shorter. Does everyone have discussion points, Great Island discussion points? If not, I'll pass it around. So Flip was great in having vision to see when John was here discussing the Great Island acquisition, which obviously is completed. Flip was great at having the vision to see that we really can't wait for the grounds to open to the public. You know, there's this period of time where I guess the town is trying to make sure the grounds are safe for the public to enter. Nora, you're probably already
The committee hasn't started meeting yet.
Okay. Flip had great vision to see that we really have to interject ourselves in the process now, because by the time the grounds do open, there's going to be I think he's done a great job here in putting some important things on the table. If people have a chance to read through this, the idea would be, let's discuss these, I think, point by point, see if we can add to them, and then I'd really like to get it in John's hands so that he can get the Board of Selectmen thinking along these lines and include us in this pre-process. I think that's the important point. So like the first, maybe just people have some comments on the boat tenders tied to docks. The existing dock at Great Island has limited capacity and will tend to be a huge draw for tenders from boats mooring in Ziegler's Cove once boaters are given access to Great Island. I think even before boaters are given access, as soon as the weather breaks in Ziegler's, they think it's town property, right? They're gonna, but you need to be prepared for when it does go public. I mean, what do people think about that one?
I've heard unofficially that there are permits or something to the effect for larger docks over there. In fact, until 2 seasons ago, I mean, looking at the picture you have here, until 2 seasons ago, there was more dockage. It has since been removed, and last time I saw what I believe was those docks was up on the
West side.
Yeah, up there.
Pulled up on the beach?
Pulled up on the beach.
Yeah.
So I don't know why those were pulled out, but it's my understanding that there is permitting or something drawn up that may have come with the Great Island package.
Could those docks been the oysters?
It was. A lot of those abandoned ones had cutouts for oystering. They had the,
Yeah.
so I think, I don't know if they might have originally been docks for boats, and then they cut them into oystering.
I used to see people land on them. I don't know if they were supposed to,
Yeah.
but I did see people on occasion go up by kayak or even swim to the docks. I'm not sure they were authorized, but those docks were there for a number of years, and it's only in the past 2 seasons they've disappeared.
I think they disintegrated them all the way it's track.
Could have been, yeah.
I remember people having boats on those docks. The ones that run like, the picture that's in here, there are ones that ran east-west, and there were boats tied up on there. I'm sure of it. So I think they were functional at some point. Maybe not in years, but they were for sure. Another issue that I I don't see on here that I was made aware of the other day as I was having lunch, and I saw one of the Marine police, and his name is escaping me, and he was sorry he didn't make it to our last meeting and wanted to come, but he got caught up. Where the beach house is, and the bathing shed, or however you call it, that sandy area, he made me aware that there used to be a saltwater type
Yes.
pool in there.
It was damaged during a hurricane of like
38?
Yeah.
But he stated that there is still portions of a retaining wall just under the low tide, a foot or so, and there's exposed rebar and there's exposed rock and things.
On the east side, as you come in?
On the east side as you come in.
Yeah.
If you were coming in, you would go straight to that beach, right?
Yeah.
And to him, that was a big concern, safety-wise, because people don't know about it. I've been here all my life, and I didn't know about it. And he's like, people are gonna run up there thinking they can go to the beach in a rib, or a whaler, or whatever, and
Swimming.
or swimming, right? Swimming is dangerous, or going up in a little inflatable, or bait, or whatever. So I think that's something to note, and maybe there's a hazard line or buoy that can be put out or something, but that would be an ugly accident.
Yeah, I know what you're talking, I'm kayaking
Yeah.
up there,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking
You
about.
probably have a better
Yeah.
view of it, but anyway, something to
Isn't that
note.
where the kayaks would be launched,
Presumably, could be, yeah.
right? I think that's what we were talking
That's
about.
the beach,
That
yeah.
would be the beach where the kayaks are gonna get launched, so maybe that's what we put here, your observations should
Sure,
probably
yeah.
be added there.
Anyway, just a note before that got passed over.
And what would you call that beach area? You had you call it the beach house? There's two houses,
There's
left and right, right?
The beach house are like the swimming,
Yeah, it's a southeast exposure.
Yeah, there's a swimming area.
well, I would maybe refer to it as the sandy beach, for lack of a better term, because that's the only sand that's there.
Okay.
And I would say that's either a bathhouse
It's a
or
bathhouse,
a bathhouse, that's the word.
just a
Sure.
bathhouse.
Yep.
Go change out of your clothes into your bathing suit.
So Flip made some suggestions, preliminary recommendation on the boat tenders tied to dock. Do people think those are comprehensive? Again, with the eye of presenting these to the selectmen as, hey, here's what we're thinking of as an early.
If the police were here, the police representative, I'd ask the question, have you contemplated for the initial period of Great Island opening, repositioning the police boat to this location?
That's interesting.
Just as a different view, I mean.
Yeah. As a
As a safety.
method to
Yeah.
keep things a little in check. The other is well watched. It's there in boat club. It always has a manager there or a launch operator. Yeah.
At least for the 23 boating season.
Well, given the dockage that's there, then the fireboat plus the police boat would cut way down on the dinghy float.
Controlling access is gonna be a
I agree.
big challenge. As I've mentioned in previous meetings, we have trouble at parks and beaches.
Is signage enough?
No. To be honest
It's
with
for
you.
that reason.
It'll just be a huge problem no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I believe you have to put up signage because you have to
To
have like
start
record of
with,
notice,
yeah.
but we put up signs for all sorts of things that people have noticed.
I think Flip's third bullet on the right is pretty good. If you can imagine, I was talking to him about this recently, if you can imagine this is the end of the dock and this is where the fireboat lives, that this particularly be painted with like a 1 foot red stripe, a white stripe paralleling the entire length of the boat with fireboat written on it, so that you'd have to it would be impossible to miss the implication this is where the fireboat goes. Because, as he went on to say, if the fireboat goes out on call and comes back and there's a bunch of dinghies, there's going to be some very pissed off firemen. Plus, it's not a good safety thing.
Okay.
So that seems like it's easily implementable to me. It just needs to be sort of gigantic so that you can't possibly miss it. And that's only the fireboat. And then you saw his other thing, I guess, where is it? About the 2x4s, yeah. This actually, that should be really 2 different points under that third point under his recommendations. The other is on the other side of the dock, where the deep sea fishing boat has historically been. Just create easy places to tie up, which are typically just short 2x4, longer 2x4, and you'd run your painter through it if you've got a dinghy, so that there actually is good.
Are we talking about day dinghies coming off day boats?
Yep.
So what about, I've got my 17-foot pull, and I don't have a dinghy, I want to pull it right up there too. I want to get out and see what's going on. They're going to want the same thing.
That's where gigantic signage comes in.
Dinghies only.
But I'm saying,
Dinghies only.
how can you have just dinghies pulling there while I don't have a large boat with a dinghy, I've got a 17-footer, I want to go and see the same stuff?
You can just pull up right next to the fireboat and shine the fireboat.
So I'm just saying, there's an equity thing here too, you gotta think about it. It's
Yeah,
not just
wrapped up
dinghies.
with a rough fireboat and walk ashore.
But maybe we don't want to add hardware to facilitate tenders right now.
I would think not for now,
Why
until we know what
would
we're
you
doing.
want to do that? If it's, you
People
go
are
in
gonna
and
do
there's
it
nowhere to
anyway.
tie up.
Well, I thought Flip's point was people are gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, but don't make it easier for them.
But I think that, well, that's a question.
You let them pull up to the beach, tide goes out, now they're stuck, you know, that's usually what'll happen. They'll learn.
I mean, to your point,
And they
it's
step
gonna
on
happen.
rebar that's going
And so
straight up.
facilitate it happening in a safe way,
Let's
is
hear
probably
it.
the better thing to do. I mean, like, should we have 30 feet of dock space for tenders? When I think of like places I've visited cruising, there's usually like, I don't know, it's gonna be like 40 to 60 feet of dock space between the rectangle and the, and it's loaded with
Over
dinghies, so
time,
you
but
gotta
it's-
crawl your way.
Yeah, I was
Now.
gonna, that's an overtime thing, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not a
Is
now.
is this gonna be, I thought the perspective here was out the box, it's Memorial Day, what are some reasonable things we can put under control? That was what I thought the spirit of Flips.
What I was hearing from the town was that before they open this to the public, that they need to think of some ground rules to make this safe. And Flip is saying there's some real things from the water viewpoint
Right.
that need to happen. And I think he's right, it's gonna be swamped with dinghies, day one. As soon as they say it's open to the public, I think that crowd, which is in Ziegler's Cove, which we know is huge in the summer, is all gonna be going ashore.
Check it out.
Well, what about like Uber's going in there and dropping people off so that they can be picked up by their friend who's hanging out there during the day? Or like ordering Uber Eats or DoorDash. I mean, all of that is gonna happen.
That's an idea.
I'm just saying, it's-
Uber Eats to the dock, and then you take your dinghy over
It's
and
there.
pick up your pizza.
Do you put like hazard buoys in front of the dock so the big boats can't come to it? I haven't seen that, but I wonder if that's a way to handle keeping Bill right away.
Dang
And
right.
I think these are the things the committee's gonna have to be talking about, is like for this summer.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
right, it's right on.
We're
It's like
clearly
that.
not gonna be ready to have people on
So-
the property.
So let's ask a question. There's only gonna be one boat, the fireboat, which is the big one below, right? The rest of the dock is clear. Is that right? With the picture?
Yep.
Okay. So maybe you just say one side. You don't want anything behind the fireboat, and you say one side is available when it's open.
And if you had one side,
And it would be the opposite side of where the fireboat is, right?
that would hold a lot of things.
Right. Or maybe half that. Maybe you say half that. I don't know.
I just question what's wrong with a lot of dinghies as long as you can handle it, okay? The purpose of the island is to be an entertainment venue for the public. Like, you'll want people around the island. So, I mean, I think our attitude shouldn't be, how do you keep them off? But how do you accommodate them safely? And
That's the safely thing. It's the
It's the
same, it's
safely
the
thing.
same as moorings, it's the same as what, everything in Ziegler Cove, it's a little scary what can happen. So if that's the side, I mean, it's not the bigger side, right? Because, well, I'm not gonna, down the plank, you're not, the gangway, you're probably not gonna have boats right next to the gangway for safety purposes, right? that fat part on the bottom. Here, you probably don't have boats
I
there.
think you'll, if you're wanting to get in and that's the dock space available, you're gonna put your dinghy where there's room.
Maybe you don't put,
Tie-ups.
Yeah, you don't put tie-ups there, but, so that would be the space that I think makes sense if you're going to do it, because the other side, who knows what's gonna happen? Maybe the police boat will be there half the time, we don't know. I don't know if the police boat will be there, I don't know if it's deep enough for the police boat behind that.
It is.
It is.
It is.
Certainly across from the ferry boat is plenty deep.
You know, Rowayton has a town dock, right? As you come in, there's that little section of beach, and there's a, what, 25-foot floating dock near that park. And it- Sorry?
For your sign that says no standing.
Yep, no standing, short-term tie-up, things like that. I mean, do people abuse it? Sometimes, but more often than not,
To drop
that
off.
dock is usually open.
Drop off.
And more often than not, people are like moving in and out pretty quickly. So this is a different animal, there's a place to go. People are already in the mooring field, so it's a different thing, but to conversations and meetings before, having a sign, what is it? Is it no overnight tie-up? A limit or something, so that people aren't leaving dinghies there all the time, right? What are those couple things that are enforceable if there is a bad apple in the group, right? So like, hey, Grant, you can't leave your dinghy there again, you gotta get it off. I don't know.
Well, we're not gonna solve these tonight, obviously, but what we wanna do is, I think, get a toehold with the Board of Selectmen that we're thinking about this, we've got some ideas, and we deliver this draft to them. And so it's igniting their minds that we need to get under this tent of this early committee developing safety for the.
I think we need porta potties there too, because instead of everybody peeing in the water, maybe they would actually go and pee in the porta potty before they. I'm serious, I think
Yeah.
we do have a situation that
I hear you.
someday somebody's gonna take a little bacteria count there and there may be more of a question.
That's a way to get around.
Let's hit a couple of the other ones for another 5 or so minutes, and then we'll move on. I think what I'm gonna do is try to encapsulate some of these ideas, make sure they're encapsulated, and we'll send this off to John as a placeholder.
Yeah, I think the split is for now, before
Yes.
the parcel is open to the public.
Right.
And then
More time.
the vision for, at least when the property, even though there's not all sorts of services being delivered, because that's years away.
Exactly
If
right.
any services are delivered.
Yeah, we're trying to
But just
tag
once
things.
it's sort of an open park using the small P, what the recommendation would be for control.
So, it's well put, and so like if we're thinking of that, what do we need to have in front of the selectmen right now is little alarm bells ringing off our head, like the foot access to the clam beds, are there things right now that we think need to be done prior to this public opening? Because at the point at which it goes public, people will be streaming to the eastern side and wading off the shores to clam beds.
What happens when somebody goes in the day after it rains and there's no, be careful. There's gotta be some kind of sign.
Yeah, we should put, right, the
There's gotta be a
sign.
sign. I also think at some point, there's going to be, we should have a more clear way to get that information.
Then
Post
call
it
this
everywhere.
number.
I'm sorry, yes,
Then call
don't
us.
call this number,
Yeah.
but there's
And
gotta be.
this begs it. And if you go to Greenwich, they have a signboard with plaques they can put on, and it can say closed. And so we could charge somebody, when that rainfall trigger hits, to put a plaque on it that said closed. And that would be, because it's got now
That's
easy
what I'm
access.
thinking, right? Because this is the first time you've had water access unless you had wind there.
Just put a QR code, just put it up there and let people use their smartphone to get the current status of
Yes, great idea.
the,
Remember with the sign that you rotate through and change, that's someone's responsibility. And I believe that when we had the temporary hold on clam beds, right?
Yep.
There was concern about
Great concern.
liability and consistency of delivering that message. That if you do deliver it and you
You
say
own it.
this, then people begin to expect it, which is okay if you're willing and committed to consistently doing that. But you guys didn't tell me. You know, I got sick off of clams because it said open, because someone didn't change the sign.
Well, I think the
There's a
point is,
liability.
do not clam, you know, you could say,
Never
do
clam
not
unless you
clam,
check the
do not clam after, if it rained in the last one day, you know, put that out there. And
Sure.
then you have maybe a QR code is the right thing, and before you clam, look here, and that, if that's updated, it has to be updated.
Every time
It's a
you
regular-
clam.
Every time you clam, that's right, so there'll be some signage there.
I think
I
that's,
am very concerned about that, like all the
Is-
safety issues.
I think that's a better track. I think a manual sign just leads openness to exposure to liability of,
Yeah.
you gave me the wrong information. Where if they go to the shellfish site, sorry Kevin, you go to the shellfish site, that's where we would get the information. So just
Is the
circle
trigger,
back to the
is the trigger that is the point in time when access is granted for Great Island? I mean, I think all those conditions of safety are triggered when public access is granted. So I'm just using kind of binary, either as an interim step, pre-access, or access has been granted officially, therefore, under conditions of safety, be advised to follow them. So I don't think that we need to address that if we focus on interim steps at this point. I'm simplifying the world. It's pre-access to the Great Island. Right now, it's closed.
Right, it's closed.
So-
This is
so-
one public.
I mean, so the docks, it's closed, but you can gain physical access. If you can't gain physical access from the land to the shellfish beds, then it's not in our purview for interim steps.
That's your point.
I'm just simplifying
Yeah.
for what we need to give the, selectmen.
Has the sign been posted at the end of the dock? I mean, if you go over the Rings End Bridge now for the land sign, there is a sign that's, it's big, it says no public access.
I haven't seen that either.
I wonder, I haven't been by water yet. to
Maybe that's
see
the first step.
Whether there's a sign. I
At
would-
the end of the dock.
I would think if they'd done it at the driveway, they would have done it.
I didn't see a
I don't
sign, I
know.
was there a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't looking for a sign, but nothing jumped out at me.
I was there Saturday and Sunday, and I didn't see it. Again, I wasn't looking specifically, but
You can go up to the dock and trot along it and say, here I
In your
am.
dinghy.
not yet.
I went right by it yesterday and I didn't see it.
So what about the swimming area where the Zagos used to swim? Is that gonna be open to recreational swimmers? Or are people gonna pull their boats in there like on Fish Island? You know, they put their boat in there, one anchor off the back, and it's a perfect spot to pull in there. Maybe I can put my 17-footer in there instead of the dock. But I would expect people are gonna do the same Fish Island attempt on that swimming area. If we have swimmers in there, maybe that's a great place to swim to keep them off other places, maybe not, I don't know. But those are another thoughts we gotta think about.
That's a great one. Hazard buoys.
Because it's
Yeah.
gonna be a spot that.
Swimming area,
we
you
want
know,
to
the same everywhere
Yeah,
else.
so if you cordon it off and it is a
Yeah.
swimming area, if you really want to use it that way, then you got a lifeguard. and all that
Hazard
stuff.
moving
That's something like.
signals are necessary.
There's particularly a little inlet.
Do you have to have?
Who wouldn't want to pull their boat in there just to try it out, right?
Totally right, and we didn't think of that. It's
You
good.
don't, because there's the bad seawall that's gonna eat.
No, I've seen that with my kayak, you can get in there.
That's great though.
If there was
It's real
an
concern.
area cordoned off for swimming, are we required to have a lifeguard, or can it be, swim at your own risk?
I think you can be swim at your own risk.
Okay, so it could be swim at your own
Maybe
risk,
deny
but
the
then you
beach.
won't have any boaters coming onto
Beaches
that
are
beach.
not-
And you're still gonna have everybody coming off their day mooring spots and swimming over there anyway, across everybody's
Which isn't
wake.
great either.
No, that's why I'm really nervous about it.
It's pretty scary.
So I think I heard there's a recommendation, kind of a sign on the dock, that was suggesting that access to the island is restricted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would,
Yeah.
is now, you know, stuff.
If it's not there, yeah.
I think that now would be assessing the seawall, right? And the danger it does or does not impose. Because we know about it, because I heard about it from a police officer, you knew about it because you kayak, you guys, right? But
Yeah, a person can't
I've
see.
been
don't see it
in
today,
Coast
but-
my entire life, I never knew that was there. So maybe it's just something that John Zagrowski needs to be aware of, and the town needs to look at that and say, hey, this is a major safety issue. Or it's not, it's within our realm of acceptability, but in investigation of that potential hazard,
You didn't know.
seems like that would be something.
Because it's an attraction, I don't call it nuisance, it's an attraction to go to that beach, right?
Oh,
And so everybody's gonna try.
It's a
And the
cute.
first ones that hit it will be
You
like,
haven't been
"Oops."
allowed to go to that beach for
I know.
120 years.
So
and
finally,
you're allowed to.
Legal, let's do it.
That's what's great about a kayak, you get into places before other people think.
Yeah.
For the longer term, we'll need to plan on ripping that out.
A plan, but an assessment to start, it would be,
And don't forget, that's where the kayak launching traffic is too. So you have a lot there that could
it actually.
go wrong.
And there are knowledgeable boaters and kayakers and paddleboarders, and they're naive kayakers and boaters and paddleboarders, and I think you have to be aware of it. You know, it's
What-
a safety issue.
What do you all think about the fishing from the rock outcrops? That's been an interesting one that Flip has put forward. He's mentioned this a couple of times. What do you think about that?
That would probably be in the period when the Great Island is open to the public. So I'm oversimplifying. Pre-announce, pre-access, access. This is an access point time,
Yeah, I
right?
agree with that, yeah.
Just a phasing of that in.
Given that you're breaking the law to make it an issue prior, yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of overt action. You have to go beyond the sign and,
Yeah, because it's interesting at Cove Park in Stanford, they've outlawed anybody, big signs, fishing off the rocks. You know,
Really?
so they're the same kind of, not quite as high as this, but it's the same thing. About 3 years ago, they occasionally send a cop in there and tell them to get no fishing. So
And
they
that's
must have
just
had some
liability
liability.
management, right?
Had to have a liability issue of some sort for that to happen.
What does Weed Beach and Pear Tree Point rules look like for walking on or climbing on the
You're
rocks?
supposed to.
There's signs that there wasn't.
Keep off.
I know there were signs there when I was a kid.
Yeah, there is.
Is that, just like, go do it.
And again, everybody walks on them.
And everybody walks.
But if you have signage up,
Yeah.
it's easier to say, keep off the rocks, right? And then enable people later, if that's what you choose you want to do as a designated fishing point, and you could say, we've deemed this as a safe designated fishing point, because there's access, or we put in a handrail, right? But if you, I'm.
But I know what you're saying.
But maybe there are signs that say, keep off the rocks to start with.
Is that going to be the purview of our team? Or is that park?
I don't know, kind of throwing stuff out.
It's not Parks and Rec because the property has not
Okay.
been designated a
Okay,
parkline. I think it'll be the Great Island Committee.
Great, got it, okay, yeah.
there's a coastal zone that they've outlined, so this is, that beautiful rocky coast. I think that's a coastal commission area, or overlaps with somebody. That's the beauty of the coastal beauty, and I would hate to see docks built there, for example.
Sure.
So I would think, just like a bullet point, as we figure out what best practices are for other, fishing from rocks and other similar parks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I know we use the word park, but
Yeah, small P Park.
I really encourage the mindset.
I mean,
You gotta have something to
it's
say,
not
yeah.
legally a park, but it's
Small
what,
P.
I'm sorry, Jim.
ultimately it will function like a park. It's like Highland Farm. It's not a legal park in town, but people think of it as a park.
I just think we should have a desire for people to fish. Okay, that's,
Yep.
this land is for the public use. And the more people we can get interested in fishing, as long as it's safe, right? We don't want them walking on a jetty that's unsafe. But if we can get in a safe spot, we want them to fish. That's, to me, that's gotta be the priority.
I mean, the town kind of handled it already
Best practice.
at the dam under Goodwise River. They put a sign there and said, at your own risk. So you can walk out onto that dam on the Goodwise, and you can't fish there because that stinking fish ladder ridiculousness. But you can walk out there because they put a sign up. They used to have no trespassing, and now it just says at your own risk. So we could do that, and then we probably talk to the town council, but that might cover us. Keep fishing, but at your own risk.
What if it gets too populated with fishing and the conflict with kayakers?
Kayakers have to know to go around the fishing line, guys when they have poles out, that's their etiquette, they've got to go around the fishing. It's not that.
But now at Cove, they've said no fishing.
Yeah,
I wonder if that's one of the elements of it.
nothing to do with kayakers, there's not that many, so I don't know.
Okay.
And you got to have them in Spanish too, of course.
Right.
Just everybody's got to cover it. But I don't know, it's disturbing to see those signs, because one, the fishermen love to be out there, and they look ugly. This beautiful look like Maine and Cove Park, and now they've got these things, fishing signs.
It's something on Parks and Rec we talk about all the time.
Yeah,
We got
yeah.
the panel, we got more signs, bigger signs,
Uh-huh.
remind people,
Sure.
whatever. And I was like, you wanna go to the park and not have a lot of no's.
Exactly.
Don't do this, don't do that, don't go there, and it's just, you just wanna
I
get
agree
the
with you.
natural.
That's a little bit of the hazard
Beauty of
buoys
it.
also. You can
Yeah.
put a hazard buoy out there everywhere off the coast, right?
Yeah.
Don't
They'll
hit
they'll still hit
Yeah.
something.
And they'll still hit something and then you get liability. You go, you guys place things everywhere, but not that one. Why not? It's your fault. You know?
Is this the case where we use an example? What can we learn from other towns on how they manage this task?
I think on an issue by issue,
But a lot of
perhaps,
fishing.
yes.
No, we
Yeah.
gotta keep, I don't know,
People
fishing.
fishing.
They make it easy.
Well, listen, we're at 10 of. I'm going to propose that these ideas, I'll try to augment this. I'm going to throw this to John. I think it's important we get our voice in there now, and this will be a continuing conversation. So to be deepened. You guys have great thoughts. If anything more comes to your mind, shoot me an email. I'll try to get this out to John shortly.
It's a great starting point, you can really.
Yeah, Flip was really flipping ahead on this. Great. In the 10 minutes, I want to just sort of jump to just a couple things. This is short circuiting. And one would be, John, do you have a harbor master's report of any sort you'd like to give? You did a lot of talking the other night, so maybe you don't have to add anything, but please do if you'd like.
I just did a couple of things that we know. So, right now I have 209 fully approved moorings for this year. I have 34 people who still have not provided everything for the renewal for their mooring. Most of it is just they haven't provided their Connecticut DMV registration. Wait list, I have like 8 people who still haven't fulfilled everything. In Darien Harbor, roughly 35 moorings we were able to assign this year. I've assigned 15 so far in Darien Harbor and assigned 2 in Narrowden Bay. Ziegler's, I think I've had a turnover of about 3, maybe 4 moorings. Scott's, not so much. I don't think I've had any movement in there yet. My focus has been primarily on, the berthing harbors, Darien and Narrowden Bay. 35 is a big number to fill in 1 year. I'm working, very closely with the Narrowden Yacht Club. They have their usual customer base that they have to service. The process of assigning new moorings is you have to communicate with the person who's vacating. Their tackle has to be inspected so that both the seller and the buyer know what is being sold. Finding a lot of tackle that cannot be repurposed, has to be disposed of, new tackle needs to be purchased. Small number of movers in the harbor, relocating from one point in the harbor to another. But right now it's, like I said, 35 new mooring opportunities and 15 so far assigned. And I'm going to continue going down the list.
And that 35 was from your, if you will, culling activities, saying you shouldn't be on, you haven't been on, all that type of stuff.
Not having registration, not having a boat, someone else's boat. I sold my boat during COVID. I haven't had anything on it in a couple of years. COVID created a number of things. A lot of people were trying to buy boats, a lot of people were selling boats, and a lot of people, I think, made the decision they weren't going to buy a boat until later on. And in the meantime, they've left their mooring empty for 2 years. And, as part of the ordinances we do have, that's considered an abandoned mooring.
Right.
So those were put back in stock for reissuing to people on the wait list.
How have people been, when you do call them and tell them that they got them? Are they excited? Or are they like, oh man, I wasn't expecting this? Or like, 35 is a big number.
It's been a mix. A lot of people were not prepared, did not expect their number to come up so quickly. I had one person who thought their name came up quickly, but they actually been on the list for 10 years. Yeah, it's a mix. Some people already have contractual obligations elsewhere, just not in a position to buy a boat yet.
Is that a different state? Meaning, I think we heard from that last meeting, that people that have already contracted for a marina.
Right.
And then, so that's one group who's like,
Right.
just already paid my fee.
And some people will, if they're eager enough, they'll forego the cost of the money that they, for a marina that they're at already in order to get into the harbor. Most people are like, no, I can't really do that right now. And then, I make them aware of the number of moorings that have opened. It's a very high number, and you are far reaching into the list. And I may not go that deep next year, so I always let everybody know that too, so they can balance their decision.
Sure. When you measure the waiting lists, I understand you do it by geography.
There's a couple of different ways to look at it. I mean, first off, there's seniority. How long have you been on the list? What type of boat do you have? I created a secondary list which I combined together. I have people like, for instance, every harbor now has wait list with a boat, wait list without a boat. You can actually, if you go to the site, you'll actually, see those different, categories. One does not give you any advantage over the other. It helps me because two things: if you don't have a boat, I want to know what kind of boat you're anticipating getting. And when you start rising towards the top, I know I have to call those people and say, you have a possible opportunity coming this spring. I see that you don't have a boat. You better, if you want a mooring this year, you need to position yourself with a boat, because when I call upon you, I can't wait for months and months while and there have been people who have said yes, and then they've also come back and said, yeah, not this year. Only one or two so far. It's not bad. But every conversation's slightly different. Some people say, I'll be ready next year. Some people say, I don't know.
For the, I'm going to use your nomenclature here, Darien Harbor, Main Harbor, is it accurate to say if I was prepared to have a mooring further south, further outside the harbor, working off the harbor, that I could have a mooring pretty quickly?
If you have a larger sailboat, those tend to go out farther than the harbor. Deep keel, bigger boat can weather the weather. When we get strong southerly, or even like a strong, westerly, you want to have a larger boat in the harbor. You don't want to have a smaller boat out there. There's more depth out there. It's just where all the larger boats traditionally have gone. There's less protection out there.
So you're using your judgment as, if I've got it right?
But it's not only my judgment, but it's also working in conjunction with the contractors in the harbor also. Derek Norotan Yacht Club, or the gentleman, Norm Edwards from Rowayton Yacht Club. So, I work in conjunction with them. I can't just say, put it over there and, there's not enough water. I mean, I rely on input from a number of people figuring out where these boats should go.
So, but the fundamental decision of where to place them lies with you, or is it with the contractor?
Both of us. I mean, I rely on their expertise because they're out there every day pulling anchors. They know the depths. They know the obstructions really, really well. And you also go based on history of what's been out there. I have to move boats from time to time because people have been assigned with one boat and then show up with a different boat unannounced, and things have been more relaxed in the past because you were able to. COVID really changed a lot of things. So now I'm relocating boats that are too large to be, because people will have 17 footer and then they show up with a 35, and then they have to be moved farther out in the harbor if there's space for it. And in some of the, if you watched the video on what I'm proposing for
I did,
ordinances, a lot of things are covered in that. There's no guarantee that if you go out and buy a 35-footer, that there's going to be a space for you, because I'm not proposing that you should be allowed to bump someone on the wait list just because you decide to go out and buy another boat.
I understand your proposal, yeah.
Yeah.
I just, as a rule of thumb, consistent with safety, someone in the waiting list could opt to have a mooring location that's further south without some of these extended durations of a waiting period. Is that a fair statement? I mean, I'll restate it again. Not prepared to have a mooring further south.
If you're on the wait list and you decided, you're on the wait list for a 17-footer and then you decided you want a 40-footer?
No, I'm just saying in the case of 17-footer. What I can't get from here is the distribution of size of boats on the waiting list, or is there any sense of, do you break that down further? Big boats? on the waiting list?
There isn't. What I have to do is, as openings happen in the harbor, I have to look down the list. Like if somebody's vacating the harbor with a 40-plus footer, I will look for the highest person on the wait list in that category, because that is a suitable place for them. Just because something opens up mid-harbor, I can't throw a sailboat because he's at the top of the list, throw him in a spot where there's only 3 feet of water at low tide.
Right.
So there's a number of factors.
No, I get it.
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand, I'm learning. Thanks, John.
Yeah, sure.
I'm learning.
John.
So it's the number that says, you take your waiting list.
I would not go by these numbers.
That's I'm trying to get to that.
That's the problem. I don't know how the system calculates.
If you don't, I know I will.
The problem is, I'm familiar with the system. The Darien Boat Club used to use this system. And we never liked the year's wait because it really wasn't a true indicator of how long it takes. I'm going to reach out to them. I don't think we were able to years ago at the Darien Boat Club to remove that field, but I'm going to reach out and ask them because it's not a good indicator of how long it's going to take to get a mooring, because it's not predicated on class size of boats or anything like that. I am going to, like, my first step in segregating was with a boat, without a boat. Then you're going to have, if you want to try and create different class mooring areas in the harbor, that's something I've thought about, but just not there yet.
How many are on, because I think at height, it was 210 people or plus or minus, right? But what is it now with your corrections and?
Right now I have 196 people waitlisted, and I have 8 people, so it's a little over 200 people. I have waitlist under review. So 96 plus 8, so you're talking about 204 roughly on the wait list for all of Darien's harbors.
So I get asked all the time, does a new member to the Roten Yacht Club automatically get their boat?
No.
Okay, so they have to get on the list as well.
Right.
And they work it through. There aren't certain moorings that are assigned to the yacht club other than for launches and those kind of things.
The Norotan Yacht Club is in the process right now of getting all of their moorings permitted with the state of Connecticut.
Okay.
In the past, they've been permitted through the harbor master. They were supposed to be permitted for specific vessels. An issue came about in the harbor, and I won't get into those details. But in my conversations with the state, they said that Norotan Yacht Club, and the same is also happening for the Tokenique Beach Club, they're in the process of getting all of their moorings permitted through the state. I only permit private citizens, recreational vessels, anything commercial, institutional, organizational, clubs, whatever, has to be permitted through the state of Connecticut. Flip has actually been filling out all the paperwork for the
So if they do that, that's not just for their tenders, that's for their members as well?
No.
Well,
No?
Definitively.
it can be for their vessels and also for transient
Okay.
moorings.
Good.
So they're working
So
on
this
getting
needs to be out there,
transient
because a lot of
moorings.
people think there's a special hierarchy thing going, that's going that way. Okay. Good.
And just to round out the story, I don't think there's any privileged class whether it be the Roten Yacht Club, Darien Boat Club, any other entities. It's the distinction of either private or commercial or governmental.
Right.
Okay, just a,
No, nothing.
if I got that correct?
Yeah, on my watch, nobody's got a better foot up than anyone else. Everybody's equal. I mean, if you show up tomorrow and want a 50-some-odd footer, yeah, you're probably gonna get a space out in the harbor because it's way out there, and nobody really wants to be out there other than people with big boats.
That's the concern I have is, if our directive is to attack the waiting list, if that's our prime, I'm not suggesting it's the case, John, but if that is the prime objective of your charter, attack the waiting list, when in fact that there are ways to break out of 204 that could be misleading for the same reason you said. It can be a class of boat. If you're prepared to go pretty far out there, there's probably a way to accommodate a mooring today. Is that a fair statement? You're out in the buoys, you're at safety, your risk.
You're out in the buoys, you're out farther. I mean, there's only so much space. The bigger the boat, the bigger the swing you have. And that area is, for big boats, that area is filling out. I mean, there are moorings now that are south of those rocks, those big rocks off of Nash Island. You want to be out there. I don't know how much farther we're going to go out. I mean, we're already at the end of the harbor.
Totally green tying up.
There is a eddy that, some of the boats by the government marked the Nun there. There's an eddy on the backside, on the western side of Long Neck Point. There's a back eddy there that is nasty with any kind of easterly or any kind of southeasterly. So that those boats are at odds with current and wind. So it's tough conditions there for access, for safety. But nonetheless, there is a mooring available. There are moorings, there's geography, it seems that there's water, navigable water there.
I mean, there are areas that are farther out where you can't have larger boats because of underwater obstructions too. It's a case-by-case basis. You have to evaluate what's around you and what's under you.
Listen, I want to wrap up here in just a minute, if that's all right. Is that the core of what you needed to tell us?
That's all I was going to do as far as like a harbor master's report.
And you've all seen or know of at least the mooring policy committee meeting we had.
Yeah, that's great. You're really working it.
And expect there to be, we're going to meet again on the 24th, I'm lining that up with people, and expect there to be an output of that committee for this commission that you all would get to discuss, and ultimately we want you to approve what John is suggesting, what that committee's suggesting. So stay tuned for that in the weeks ahead.
Great.
The other thing I wanted to do as a last item, although you guys could bring up a final business thing after this, Jim Furlong's done some great work on what is an important issue, the safety signs on the kayak racks. And Jim, I just thought you maybe give us an update on that.
Yep, so they're up as of, on all the kayak racks around town as of yesterday. I got most of them up like last Thursday. And then yesterday I finished it off over at Fir Tree. And basically, when you go by one of the racks, you'll see there's, like in past years, there's an 8.5 by 11 kind of detailed paddler safety tips where there's a little bit of an explanation around the 4 recommendations that we're making. And those recommendations are real simple: wear a life jacket, carry a whistle or a VHF radio, leave a float plan with family, and most importantly, avoid the dangers of cold water in spring and fall. So there's this 8.5 by 11 quick read for an explanation, and then on each of the vertical posts, there's what we call a post sign, which just calls out the titles of the four things we should do. So
I saw it on the Darien.
The newsletter, they look really nice.
Yeah.
You know, you said they're kind of
I
the
saw it on
shop.
Instagram.
They look great.
Town of Darien posted it, which I thought was great.
yeah, they look good. I will say right at the end, we reached out with the final design, and Jerry, is it Maron?
Marin.
Yeah. Jerry came out with a couple of comments he wanted to incorporate, and we agreed that we'd like to do that next year, but we were gonna lose a couple of weeks if we did it now, and really, this is the most critical time when the water's still pretty darn cold. So he agreed, let's get this up for this year, but next year, and the main thing, and it's a good thing that he brought up, there's now something called a, what's the term for it? If found sticker, but it's basically an ID sticker they want to put on all kayaks and stand-up paddle boards, that you have the owner's name and a telephone number and an email address, so that we don't get the type of situation that happened last year where a couple of kayaks were left below the tide line, they floated out, and the Coast Guard started flying helicopters to see if people were in the water.
For hours and hours.
It was nothing but a kid who left his kayak out below the
We
tide
talked
line.
about that in the past, and I can't remember if it was here or Parks and Rec, and I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but people were worried about, privacy, and, my kayak's down at the, with the sticker on it, now somebody has my name and my phone now, I'm just saying, I understand
Yeah.
why it makes a ton of sense, but
The
there
state
there actually
DEP
were objections to it.
This is the state heat,
Yeah.
and there's a link where you can,
I've done that.
you can get the sticker. I mean, it's totally a safety-related thing. I mean, I think it
No, I'm
It
not
trumps the
arguing,
privacy.
but I'm just
Yes,
telling you.
it trumps the privacy.
In a prior year, we got them from CT Boating, from Deep Boating. We got a bunch of them, and I handed them out to DBC and maybe the Norotan Yacht Club. I mean, I got like 500 or something
Yeah.
like that. I don't know if anyone wants to give a call up.
I will do
send
that.
them
I'll
down.
see, I think that's the best way to do it, to get quantity. And if, say at Norotan Yacht Club or at DBC, they were just there, and people can grab them, fill them out, and put them on. I think the
Or you
chances
put
of
them on the
people...
racks down at the beaches or something.
Exactly. I think that's the best way to get them.
With a marker, like.
Exactly.
A marker.
Just do it. Make it
yeah.
so easy that people will do it.
Yeah.
So I'll investigate whether we can get some quantity of it. Because I would...
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
Is there a liaison or something for the Boy Scouts, or that maybe on a Saturday morning, they can be at one of the racks? Sort of
Don't know.
It's in the...
saying it could be a scout project or something like
Yeah,
that.
good idea.
Saturday morning for June or all of May, like, there's a rotating Boy Scout or something that stands there and is like, hey, Mr. Smith, would you like to put this sticker on your kayak so that, or at the bulletin board at the boat club, because there's a lot of racks at the boat club.
I know who to ask.
It's a great idea.
Just-
Let me see if I
I'll
can
bring it
get...
up Wednesday
if
at
I
our
can
commission
get a
meeting,
quantity
we have
of
a
these
scout
things.
liaison.
It could be
On our
a good
commission.
project for them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, does anyone have any other
I was
business?
gonna measure one quick thing, speaking
Yeah,
of
please,
scouts,
yeah.
because I didn't, this group's always very interested in cleanup. We did, a town resident came to us over the winter about, it's called the beach bucket system that she saw in Florida, where there's racks of beach buckets that are there for people to take and pick up garbage at the beach and dispose them. And she liked this idea, came to Parks and Rec, blah, 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 so whatever. Long story short, we do have a Scout Eagle project, which was approved and is in process. So we're gonna start it at Weed Beach, and it'll be built within the next month, I think. She's gonna get it up. But it'll be a rack with buckets about this big. There'll be logo Parks and Rec on one side, Darien Beautification on the other, because the individual started this. And the idea is that people who are on the beach can grab one of these buckets, pick up trash, put it in the bucket. There'll be somewhere to dispose of it. And then as part of her project, I think she's gonna do a cleanup day down at the beach. So I thought that was nice. They're gonna try that out. The risk is that the buckets go missing, but I know they're gonna try to have an extra supply.
I found another beach which had that, and I took a picture. I'll find it and send it to you. It was a design. Maybe they already have a design?
Yeah, no, it's all designed.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, she did a nice job with it.
Cool.
Really nice job with it, so that's
Seen it
how it'll be
before.
happening. Yes, and
Yeah,
that's
cool.
where
And I've seen people doing it.
the woman on the beautification commission first saw it and came back to us with it, and we were like, okay, who's gonna run this? And then we got a,
Cool idea.
it's a great Eagle Scout project.
Jim, thank you for that great work.
Oh, no problem.
It makes a big difference. I mean, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
It's good, thanks.
Did you get them up at Norotan?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, very nice looking.
Improvement on the last vintage.
Yeah, you know, same message, it just looks a little nicer.
Yeah, well, that'll attract young people, I think, a lot more,
Right.
a little more, not 1950, but 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So I'm gonna say we adjourn unless there's any other business. So we're adjourned, thanks for a good conversation.